In the beginning, our male protagonist is lying on a patch of land quite leisurely. He is lamenting his wretched fate. He thought that crossing over would make him the child of destiny, whatever that system is, everything would be easily written down but unexpectedly. He sits up, feeling frustrated and sighs, a person without a spiritual root like me can only be a cowherd child. 2 days later is my 16th birthday, at which point I will join the militia and go to the battlefield as cannon fodder. Suddenly, a stream of red light shoots down from above, piercing through the body of the cow he is herding. He simply gazes and then wakes up as if nothing happened. The cow radiates some strange power. It looks at him and suddenly speaks, "After 500 years, I've finally found the right person, ha ha ha. Indeed, I am not yet meant to die." Cultivation steps back, taken aback by the cow's strange gaze, and asks, "What's going on?" The cow suddenly jumps up, gets close to him with shining eyes, and leans in to sniff him, making Cultivation feel a chill down his spine, exclaiming, "Get away, I am not a female cow. What do you want from me?" The cow blushes with joy and says, "Kid, your opportunity has come." He stood up, waved his hand and said, "Damn it." He was scared, got into a defensive stance, and said, "What's this fate thing? This cow is so lonely that it has turned into a spirit." The cow shook its head and cursed, "Damn it, don't be slow, hurry up and follow me." It pulled his hand to get him up, making him confused and ask, "Hey, where are you taking me?" The cow urged, "Hurry up, the fairy is bathing by the river over there." Hearing that, Cultivation blushed slightly, thinking wildly, the cowherd and the golden cow, the fairy is bathing, oh my, is this Nyolanginu's script? The cow poked him with its horn on the back and said, hurry up, if you take too long, there won't be any more chances." He climbed onto its back, shouting, "Hey, be gentle, you poked my kidney." By the stream, the cow happily said, "It's right here, be careful, don't get caught." He hid behind a rock, looking at the girl in her thin clothing, and then admired, "Wow, as expected of a heavenly immortal beauty. Hee, those legs, that waist, and she's bathing." He looked over at it and yelled, "Hey, this lying cow, this is not the fairy washing apples that I wanted to see." The annoying cow said, "What do you know? The apples she washes are not ordinary apples. This type of apple is called drunken immortal apple. Eating this apple can increase your spiritual energy by several years." His face lit up with joy as he asked, "So, do we have to steal her apples?" The cow grinned and said, with her 4th grade golden elixir realm cultivation, after eating the drunken immortal apple, she will fall into a drunken state. Then you tie her up. The two of them grinned wickedly, thinking they could do whatever they wanted. The cow produced a rope and he asked, "What is this?" It replied, "This is the immortal binding rope, which can strongly suppress the spiritual energy of cultivators below the golden elixir level." He looked at the immortal binding rope in his hand and stroked his chin, pondering, do we really have to use such a rough method? I could totally conquer her with my looks. The cow kicked him to bring him back to reality, saying, "With your appearance, you might have a chance in the future." It laughed disdainfully, "With your current state of being completely broke, if you don't take advantage of a chaotic situation and use some underhanded tactics, there's no way you could do it. With your clueless look, do you think you deserve it?" He rebutted, "What's wrong? You haven't eaten the drunken immortal apple and you're already drunk." He patted his chest and said seriously, "I'm sorry, but I am a righteous person, a gentleman, and I cannot do such despicable things." The cow felt a bit insulted hearing him and sighed, "I never expected that there are still righteous gentlemen in the world like you. I really have to rub my eyes to look at you." But he then changed his tune faster than a movie star, saying, "But I don't think these ladies seem like good people, let's tie them up first and figure it out later." This made the cow sweat, and he said, "You're the one who's really worthless." It cried, "Quick, look over there." The girl brought the drunken immortal apple to her mouth and took a bite. She's eaten the apple. Not long after, she was tipsy. She sat down and began to cultivate. The wounds on her body and in her abdomen soon healed. The cow stepped forward and said, "The time has come, she has eaten the drunken immortal apple, hurry and follow me." The two of them sneaked closer. He asked, "Is it really okay?" Is she really asleep? The cow glanced with one eye and said, you really just know how to talk, you don't look like a man at all. He looked at her barrier and asked, what is this? The cow replied, it's a barrier that she created. When it touched the barrier, it cracked, then looked down on it. Is that all it takes to stop me? It pointed and said, now it's your turn to perform. He approached the girl with the immortal binding rope in hand, a bit doubtful, a mortal like me tying up a golden elixir cultivator, along with a talking cow, am I not just looking for death? The cow behind urged, Gu Bei Shen, 16 years old, both parents are gone, for the past 7 years, has been living by herding cattle and chopping wood for the landlord. Gu Bei Shen asked, so, what happens next? The cow said, if you want to escape from this miserable existence and become the lord of a region, then this is your chance to change your life. Gu Bei Shen's face turned serious, swore, stop talking nonsense with me. Can tying up a girl really change my life? I might as well die faster. Something appeared on the cow's head, and it said, I didn't expect your disposition to be quite good, not so foolish. I'm quite satisfied. Gu Bei Shen asked, what is this? You read the writing above, the 100 Wives. The cow said, the 100 Wives is just an appearance, its real name is the 100 Wives book. Ancient chaos, the primordial deity Pan Gu exhausted his divine power to create the universe, later his divine body transformed into myriad worlds, simultaneously conjuring 10 divine weapons. This 100 Wives book is actually transformed from Pan Gu's waist. Gu Bei Shen looked surprised, gazing at the 100 Wives book, asking, Pan Gu's waist? Sounds really ridiculous. So later my waist will be like an iron shell? The cow replied wickedly, it sounds ridiculous, but when used, it's very powerful. The 100 Wives book embedded itself into Gu Bei Shen's body. The cow further explained, from now on, if someone calls you husband, the 100 Wives book will record that person's name and form a contract. Once the contract is completed, you can do whatever you want with their spiritual roots and magical power. Gu Bei Shen leaned against the cow, laughing slyly, wow, why didn't your brother say this earlier? He grinned wickedly and called, my little sister Ji Nu. Then he held up the immortal binding rope to the girl, saying, Niu Lang has offended you. Just when he was about to take action, he hesitated, wondering why he felt a bit nervous. He awkwardly asked his sister, are you okay? The cow next to him spoke up, saying that even a Yuaning-level monk couldn't regain consciousness after eating a drunken immortal apple for 1 hour and 3 minutes, so there was no need to try anymore. Gu Bei Shen gave a sly smile, his eyes fixed down, questioning the size, thinking that even if he looked down, he couldn't see her feet, right? He looked down at her belly and asked for clarification, are you injured? It turned out she was healing here. In a moment, he excitedly told the fairy sister, I only want a place in this world. I apologize for my rudeness, hope you can forgive me. He quickly tied her up, but his movements were gentle and soft, making her suddenly open her eyes and turn to ask in surprise, what are you doing? They stared at each other for a moment, and then Gu Bei Shen felt as if his soul had left his body, cursing under his breath, why are you awake? He looked at her, sweat pouring down, wondering if that damn cow hadn't said that one couldn't regain consciousness in 1 hour and 3 minutes. He glanced around to see the cow had vanished, thinking, where did it go? Oh, damn it, where's the cow? The girl tilted her head and asked, Grand Gage, are you playing a game with me? Gu Bei Shen was taken aback, confused, what game? But then he quickly replied, yes. Hearing this, she exclaimed and asked, do I need to lift my feet? Gu Bei Shen grabbed the immortal binding rope and said, it will be a little easier this way. She happily said, okay. It has been years since anyone played with Zi Xian. Gu Bei Shen thought with a blank expression, is she hallucinating? That's why I say, a girl shouldn't drink when alone outside. The cow suddenly said from the side, little guy, I can see it now, you are quite skilled at this binding thing. Gu Bei Shen glared at it and cursed, damn it, where the hell did you run off to earlier? Zi Xian smiled and asked, Grand Gage, what game do you want to play with Zi Xian? The cow lightly sweat and said, it seems that after drinking, she has the mentality of a child. Gu Bei Shen patted her head and said, Zi Xian, Grand Gidge is going to play with you a game of bandits capturing people to make them the camp mistress, okay? Zi Xian widened her eyes and asked, the bandit lady? Gu Beishan grabbed the immortal binding rope and began to roleplay. This road was opened by me, this tree was planted by me. If you want to pass through this road, you must pay a toll. She replied, confused, but Zi Xian doesn't have any money. Gu Beishan picked her up and cheerfully said, since that's the case, I find someone like you quite pleasing. From now on, you will be the bandit lady of my king. She cried out in panic, help, Zi Xian is still a child. Gu Beishan snorted and said, and yet you're already crying. He put her down and comforted her, alright, stop crying. You have been captured to the king's mountain stronghold. Do you want me to untie you? Zi Xian replied, yes, yes. With a smile, Gu Beishan said, from now on, you will be my bandit lady. Now call me daddy. Oops, call me husband, and I will untie you, okay? Zi Xian puffed her cheeks, no way. My mother said that is not allowed. The cow seemed somewhat panicked and urged, this situation is not good, move quickly, she will regain her senses soon. Gu Beishan turned around in surprise, your grandpa, isn't there still 2 moments left? The black-faced cow explained, previously, we thought it was because she ate the drunken immortal apple that she ended up like this, but now she has awakened. This means she is following the path of destruction and creation. At this moment, she is taking advantage of this opportunity to break through to the next realm. Therefore, her heart realm will be in a state like that of an immature child. You must seize the time. Gu Beishan, with his eyes wide open, now that things have come to this point, we have no choice. He raised his hand and slapped Zi Xian on the backside, causing her to cry out. He asked, are you calling or not? Zi Xian sobbed, don't, Gidge, please don't. Gu Beishan continued to slap her, threatening, if Zi Xian doesn't call, don't blame Gidge for being heartless. Zi Xian stuttered, I can call, right? Gu Beishan urged, hurry up. She trembled and managed to call out, Grand Gidge. This drove Gu Beishan crazy, and he raised his hand, shouting, call husband. She loudly responded with, huss, huss. Gu Beishan yelled, call quickly. Fearing the pain, she called out, husband. The name In Zi Xian appeared on the 100 Wives book. Gu Beishan's eyes widened, thinking, the 100 Wives book is working. The cow anxiously said, quickly run, she's about to break through. It carried Gu Beishan away, leaving Zi Xian still sobbing. The cow ran at great speed, and Gu Beishan asked it, what about the immortal binding rope? The cow replied, I can summon the immortal binding rope with my thoughts. Right now, preserving our lives is the most important. As dusk gradually fell, the cow and Gu Beishan took a break. The cow exclaimed, that was too dangerous, this young lady has broken through to the golden elixir stage. If we had been just a moment slower, we would have been reincarnated again. Gu Beishan told it, next time, can we avoid doing such extreme things? He clenched his fists and urgently asked, I made a pact with her, so I should be able to use her spiritual energy and spiritual roots, right? He raised his hand and shook his head casually, saying, do we really need to be this afraid? Can she really kill us? The cow sulked and explained, first of all, this is only the initial stage of the pact. You can only utilize a portion of her spiritual energy. Secondly, since she made a pact with you, she cannot directly harm you. He looked somewhat worried and asked, but what if she kills me in a fit of anger? Gu Beishan calmly teased him, saying, what can you do if the cow has already been killed? Of course, you can make beef salad. He held the immortal binding rope and said, that's right. He seemed a bit curious and asked, why did you give me divine weapons like the 100 Wives book and the immortal binding rope? The cow, looking bored, replied, well, there's nothing that can't be said. My body was destroyed, but due to a fortunate chance, I discovered that you meet the requirements for cultivating the 100 Wives book. That's why I gave it to you. Gu Beishan wondered, requirements for cultivation. Does this thing even have requirements? Is it because I know how to woo girls? The cow explained, it's precisely because you have spiritual roots that are completely non-existent in 5 elements, yet you have a body that is extremely young. For an ordinary cultivator, you could be considered a useless person among useless people. Moreover, because your inner fire is too strong, you won't live past 18 years old. But this coincidentally aligns with the cultivation requirements of the 100 Wives book. Gu Beishan asked with interest, 10 years of great Tao, 49 heavenly immortals, hiding apart, perhaps this is the saying, heaven does not cut off a person's path. The cow smiled widely and said, well said. It was worth my effort searching for you for 500 years. You truly are my fated person. Gu Beishan emotionally replied, I can't accept your gift without doing anything in return. Tell me, since you're giving me the 100 Wives book, how do you want me to repay you? The cow turned its head and casually asked, the 100 Wives book is destined for you, so I also have a connection with you. Consider it a good deed to help you once. Is a reward necessary? Gu Beishan stood up and listened as it continued, I only hope that your little guy, after reaching cultivation divinity, will help me recreate a body suitable for my soul. Gu Beishan raised his hand and said, this is a too common scenario. Fine, I agree with you. As long as I reach the so-called divine transformation realm you mentioned, I will definitely help you recreate a body. The cow proudly boasted while carrying him on its back, wait until I find an empress to call you husband, don't say the golden elixir realm, even the cultivation equivalent to the nascent soul realm will be as easy as flipping my hand. Gu Beishan told it, then you should quickly find me an empress. The cow replied a bit sadly, if it were the peak of my time, I could lead you to find an empress. But now, Gu Beishan continued, right now, it's just a cow, isn't it? The cow reminded, once you enter the cultivation path, you must first find a sect to join. Otherwise, how will you have the opportunity to interact with those high and mighty holy sons and holy girls? How can you use the 100 Wives book to enhance your cultivation? Gu Beishan said, holy girls are fine, but holy sons are a no-go. I don't play with gay. The cow said while walking, anyway, I only have a steel waist, not a steel butt. On the side of a certain sect, many people had gathered for the disciple selection competition. The old man in brown stood high and said loudly, the selection rules for new disciples of Fei Yun sect are as follows. He pointed to the stone tablet and continued, you will take turns attacking this stone tablet. As long as you can move the spiritual energy shield on it, you will be considered to have passed. The short-haired guy below raised his hand and said, let me go first, I can do it. After saying that, he rushed forward, channeling his power, shouted, ha, and struck the stone tablet with all his might. But the stone tablet did not budge at all. The old man in the brown robe said, failure. Which left him as if turned to stone. The crowd behind anxiously discussed, he is the young master of the Zhao family. He started learning martial arts at the age of 8 and entered the refined Qi realm at 13. Even he has failed, how is that possible? The girl next to him sighed, losing hope. After all, there is a difference between the immortal and the mortal. In a world with countless cultivators, how many can truly become immortal? At that moment, a pair of long, slender legs walked over, drawing everyone's attention. It was a girl, accompanied by disciples of the sect, approaching the old man in the brown robe, looking incredibly beautiful. She was the daughter of Master Fei Yun sect, Nye Xiaotian. She gently turned her head and said, today is the selection of new disciples for the sect, but it has been a hard work for all of you senior brothers. You don't need to worry about me, just continue testing the next person. The old man in the brown robe called out, Sister Xiaotian, you actually came here in person. You are the daughter of the master and the genius of our Fei Yun sect. Just leave these junior recruitment matters to me. Nye Xiaotian replied, okay. The boy and the girl over there looked at Nye Xiaotian with admiration. Is she Nye Xiaotian? She looks so beautiful. I never expected to meet her today. Is she a fairy? She is truly so beautiful that it's hard to look away. The old man in brown raised his hand and said, continue the examination. The next person, prepare to come up. Those without strength should not come up, to avoid wasting time. The cow carrying Gu Beishan ran off, kicking up dust. Come on, come on. The cow ran past the confused crowd. It rushed towards Nye Xiaotian, then jumped, turning around suddenly. The old man in brown saw Gu Beishan's appearance and chased him away directly. where did that Cowherd kid come from? This is not a place for children like you to step into. Hurry up and get lost. The girl and the other person discussed it irritably. After all, they are from the immortal sect, they should still show some compassion. Otherwise, they would have been chased away long ago. That's right. If they came to my house, they would have been beaten up by my family long ago. The cow whipped its tail against Gu Baishan's back, mooing, "Hey, don't sleep anymore, we're here." Gu Baishan stretched, yawned widely, and looked at the crowd. Wow, so many people, are they welcoming me? Several people laughed loudly, looking down on him. Where did this rural boy come from? Do you want to die or don't you want to live anymore to dare to cause trouble here? This is the dwelling place of immortals. Offending an immortal means both you and your cow must die. Gu Baishan's gaze met Nia Xiao Tian's chest. She stepped forward and said, "Young brother, could you please step aside? This place is a heavenly abode, not a spot for you." The cow bleated, "That girl is interesting. At her age, achieving foundation establishment surely means her spiritual roots are not bad." Gu Baishan's eyes lit up, saying, "My 100 Wives book can no longer contain my hunger." At this moment, the Murong family master rushed over, shouting, "Aren't you going to leave? Don't delay my son's test to enter the immortal sect." "What bad luck?" Gu Baishan calmly replied, "What are you making so much noise about?" He then jumped down from the cow and asked, "Why can't my son try, but your son can?" The Murong family master pointed and asked, "Your son? Where is your son? Why can't I see him?" Gu Baishan waved his hand and said, "Look in the mirror, and you'll see him immediately." The Murong family master was a bit foolish and asked, "What? What mirror?" The two people behind him laughed mockingly. "Haha, that guy is the family master of the Murong family, right? Usually, he seems quite fierce, but it turns out he's just a fool." Nia Xiao Tian asked Gu Baishan, "Do you also want to join our fianc sect?" Gu Baishan clasped his hands and bowed, smartly showing respect. Listening to the teachings has its order, spells have their highs and lows. Junior brother Gu Baishan greets senior sister. The two in white and black frowned and said, "Is there any elder in the sect who has recently taken on a new disciple?" No. It was said that recently someone had come to the upper gate, and all the elders in the sect were present, but no one mentioned anything about a new disciple being accepted. Nia Xiao Tian was still taken aback by the statement. Listening to the teachings has its order, she thought. This little cowherd can actually say such words. But we don't have anyone like that in our sect. She raised her hand to ask, "Kid, are you trying to show your confidence? Calling me senior sister depends on whether you have enough qualification." Nia Xiao Tian said, "All right, let's see if you can pass this test." Gu Baishan raised his hands and replied, "Everything has its order." His eyes were sharp as he continued, "Since I have come last, I should let these kids try first." Nia Xiao Tian asked, "Are you scared?" Gu Baishan maintained his attitude and said, "Not at all. I just don't want to undermine everyone else's confidence." Nia Xiao Tian asked, "You mean everyone?" Gu Baishan spread his arms to both sides and arrogantly replied, "Of course. I'm not targeting anyone, I'm just saying that everyone here is a little brother." Upon hearing this, everyone was puzzled, not understanding what little brother meant. Could there be some origin or literary reference to it? Surely, the words coming from his mouth were not something pleasant. Nia Xiao Tian, feeling cold and uncomfortable, asked, "What do you think this place is? Today I will let you go first. If you can pass the test, then the rest won't need to try, and everyone will be accepted into the sect." Gu Baishan gave a thumbs up and praised, "Senior sister, you are very generous. What kind of test is it?" The old man in the brown robe raised his hand to the stone tablet and replied, "Attack this stone tablet with your spiritual energy. If the shield on the stone tablet shows any fluctuation, then it is considered a success." Gu Baishan looked bored and retorted, "Attack the stone tablet? What's so interesting about that? The stone tablet can't fight back, can it?" Nia Xiao Tian laughed heartily and gestured, "Then let me personally test you." Gu Baishan was taken aback and asked, "Senior sister, how do you intend to test me?" Nia Xiao Tian smiled and answered, "Because of what you just said, I have decided to battle you. If you win, as you mentioned, there are those before and after, spells of different levels, I will call you senior brother. Gu Beishan clasped his hands and said, senior sister, if I win, you don't need to call me senior brother. He leaned in and whispered, you can just call me husband. Nya Xiao Tian, upon hearing this, quickly stepped back and waved her hand. You, what are you saying? Gu Beishan, amused, chuckled softly to himself. Why is this girl so shy? I can't help but tease her. Another person shouted loudly, did you hear what he said? That cattle herder wants Nya Xiao Tian to call him husband. The girl in the blue dress smiled as well. Maybe he has some special hobby. Is his dream to die at the hands of a fairy? Isn't living better? Gu Beishan scratched his head, unexpectedly reacting strongly. Is that so? It seems senior sister is quite sensitive. Nya Xiao Tian's evil energy erupted outward. She gritted her teeth, staring at him. On the mountain top, two people were looking down. Yin Xian called out, Nya master. Then she looked at the person beside her, puzzled. What happened? Why did you come to check on the rookie selection yourself? The master explained apologetically, I suddenly sensed the aura of the young girl fluctuating just now. The evil energy was dense, it seemed like she wanted to take action against someone. So I investigated a little. Unexpectedly, it bothered the holy girl. I apologize. Yin Xian looked down and said, it's fine, since nothing is going on, it's okay to watch a bit. Below, Nya Xiao Tian had calmed down and replied, okay. She gritted her teeth, angrily saying, you brought this upon yourself. The two disciples behind were still astonished. The wind blade technique of senior sister had indeed become proficient. If it were me, I completely wouldn't be able to withstand a single attack. Humph, don't be shameless. Does senior sister even need to use such techniques to deal with you? The other guy replied, that's right. To make senior sister so serious, it must be senior brother Li Ziling who has been in seclusion for many days. Gu Beishan eagerly clasped his hands and shouted, no more words, let's get started. Nya Xiao Tian, wielding the divine weapon, said, don't say I'm bullying you. Little guy, you can go first. Gu Beishan clasped his hands in thanks, senior sister, then I'll strike first. Saying that, he ran off, and added, a promise once made is hard to break. I'm going to review for a while, wait for me, senior sister. The crowd watching the match couldn't help but laugh. They said, is he trying to run away? I still held hope that he could defeat Nya Xiao Tian so we could all join the sect. Gu Beishan ran to the cow, calling, Nyo brother, you still haven't taught me how to use the power of the 100 Wives book to fight. Hurry up, teach me a bit. The cow gazed at him with an indescribable depth. In order to make Gu Beishan anxious, he had to press for answers. Nyo brother, what are you doing? This is an important moment, but it only let out a sound of moo, turning its gaze elsewhere as if it didn't want to talk, making Gu Beishan even more panicked. Nyo brother, please speak properly. What does moo mean? The cow, at a loss, said, I told you to take in that girl, why are you provoking her? It was sweating profusely, sincerely saying, I will pretend to be an ordinary cow, and when you die, I can still burn incense for you. Gu Beishan's face turned pale, unable to believe. Nyo brother, are you joking with me? I've already said those words. You need to come up with something. The cow was at a loss again, chewing grass helplessly, causing Gu Beishan to kneel down and desperately call, Nyo brother, help me. The master on the mountain had a displeased expression and said, such a shame. Xiao Tian's temperament is due to my indulgence. Yin Xian looked a bit stunned and said, that cowherd, how could he be a person in the illusion? She recalled the moment she was spanked by Gu Beishan and screamed in pain, then wondered, how could this be appearing in reality? Master once said that few practitioners ever meet their soulmate. She looked down at him, feeling somewhat worried. If he was really just a normal teenager but ended up getting killed right in front of me, it might harm my heart realm. Should I intervene later? Gu Beishan on this side was still pleading with the cow, Nyo brother, stop causing trouble. Quickly tell me how to use this in battle. He pointed and said, if you don't, that girl opposite me will cut me to death with her sickle. The cow looked at him, then opened its mouth and began to teach, awaken your spirit, channel spiritual energy from the 100 Wives book, visualize your attack in your mind, and then just attack. Gu Beishan still didn't understand, asking, what is spirit? How do I awaken it? And where is the spiritual energy? Suddenly, Nia Xiaotian appeared behind him, speaking, it was supposed to be just a competition, but you insulted me. She raised her sickle, deciding, if I don't kill you today, what will happen to the face of the Feiyan sect? Faced with Nia Xiaotian's intimidation, Gu Beishan closed his eyes and concentrated. The crowd outside thought he was foolish and laughed. Haha, about to die and yet very calm. Being killed by Fairy Senior Sister, is that dying without regret? You, the Cowherd, even though you are dead, you will live forever in my memories. Oh, poor child. Unexpectedly, Gu Beishan over here had gathered spiritual energy and shouted loudly, Great Flood Water Technique. The disciples stared wide-eyed at the Great Flood Water Technique he spoke of. The old man in brown also asked, what kind of spiritual skill is this? Even the cow looked confused and said, why have I never heard of that before? Behind Gu Beishan at this moment, a shark appeared. It roared and then circled around where Nia Xiaotian was standing. She was astonished and stood there dumbfounded, saying, how is this possible? The old man in brown looked up and asked, who on earth is this deity? How could they have such a method? The disciples in the sect turned pale and said, could it be just a good-for-nothing root? Another one added, that's right, it must just be a show. He's just a cowherd. Only the cow knew and smiled, praising, just stepped into the path of cultivation for a few short days, I only said a few words but was able to achieve this. He was delighted, old man Nyo has been reborn, there is hope now. The master up here was equally surprised. I didn't expect that in such a waterless place, one could harness water attributes spiritual energy to this extent. He laughed, interesting. No wonder he dares to challenge Xiao Tian. This little guy is indeed not simple. Yin Xian felt an indescribable familiarity. This cowherd boy's spiritual energy, this type of spiritual energy feels so familiar, it's just like my own spiritual energy. This feeling is truly strange. Dream figure of mine, who exactly are you? The shark was getting closer and closer. Nia Xiaotian then said, that cowherd boy. Then he threw the scythe forward, exclaiming, I didn't expect you to have some skills. Her scythe flew onto Gu Beishan's shark, causing the disciples to stare in awe once again. Shen Feng's scythe is truly formidable. Ha ha ha, Xiao Tian is indeed the daughter of the master. Gu Beishan's arrogance soared, saying, Nia Xiao Tian, the more you resist, the more excited I become. Although I am not Ning Shai, today you cannot escape. He waved his hand forward and shouted. The shark turned around and charged at Shen Feng. Gu Beishan, rushing over, also provocatively asked, so, senior sister. Is my junior brother's shark big? Nia Xiao Tian coldly waved his hand forward and commanded, chop. Shen Feng raised the wind blade in front of the shark and swung it down. Unexpectedly, the shark bit the wind blade. The powerful pressure spread out, causing the disciples below to gather their strength to stand firm. Gu Beishan suddenly asked, what kind of strength is this? The old man in brown was also astonished, this little guy can actually compete with the senior sister to this extent. The master above noticed something was off. He frowned and speculated, this guy is definitely not an ordinary cowherder. Yin Xian next to him was just praying for Gu Beishan, don't let anything happen to you. Shen Feng pressed the scythe down with force, and Gu Beishan's shark bit down without releasing. Gu Beishan said, senior sister, let's see who can hold on longer. The wind blade suddenly made a cracking sound, and the shark stopped its movement. Nia Xiao Tian could not understand what was happening. Question, what's going on? Suddenly, Gu Beishan's shark bit through Shen Feng's wind blade, causing it to falter and his body to spin to one side. The disciples were all terrified, how could this be? The wind blade was broken. Not only that, the shark gathered its strength and launched an attack at Shen Feng as if nothing had happened. Shen Feng was pushed back and trapped inside the water bubble. The shark immediately charged forward, biting Shen Feng, causing the water bubble to spin. Shen Feng gradually started to blur. The disciples exclaimed, the figure is being torn apart. Nia Xiaotian rushed over, her earlier arrogance completely vanished. How could this be? Shenfeng's wind blade fell down and began to disappear, shocking her to the point that she could only say, "How could this be?" At that moment, the shark lunged at her with its mouth wide open, wanting to swallow her whole. Nia Xiaotian shrank back, only able to scream, "Ah!" After a moment of inactivity, she looked up and saw that the shark had come to a complete stop. Gu Beishan approached, asking, "Senior sister, are you alright?" He reached out, saying, "Come on, let me support you." Gu Beishan casually reminded her, "You still owe me a call, senior sister." At this moment, a wave of power descended, and a figure gradually appeared, stepping forward. The master shouted loudly, "You brat, dare you!" The disciples pointed and said, "Nia master has come in person." The master pointed fiercely and asked, "Brat, why aren't you getting out of the way? Do you want me to take action to invite you out?" Gu Beishan, on the other hand, remained calmer. He lightly called out, "Senior sister, could it be that you are afraid of the shark?" He snapped his fingers, and an illusory image appeared, causing Nia Xiaotian to shout in fear, "Dad!" The disciple behind casually remarked, "Who is this cowherd? Hold on, who is this talented young man? How could he defeat the master's daughter from Feiyun sect?" The girl said, "It seems his name is something like Da, something like Tu Ha Da, Tu Ha whatever." They speculated, the sect master and the elders have all arrived. This little guy will definitely not have a good ending. Even the holy girl of the supreme sect is present. Our Feiyun sect will lose face this time. The master frowned in frustration and thought, Xiao Tian is the most gifted seed of our sect. Glancing at Gu Beishan, he became even more irritated. But now, I was easily defeated by that little guy who came out of nowhere. Yin Zixian stood behind everyone, understanding silently, Nialan Feng definitely wouldn't casually strike at a junior. But perhaps Nialan Feng would take action to protect the dignity of the Feiyun sect. There's a chance he might even kill. She was even more worried, although this guy is strong, he's still no match for Nialan Feng. Should I step in to help? Over here, Gu Beishan was leaning closely against Nia Xiaotian, gently calling, "Senior sister." Then he reassured her, "No need to be afraid." After that, he whispered in her ear, "I'm very gentle." This made Nia Xiaotian's cheeks flush, her body felt hot, and she thought, "My ears are itching, this feeling is so strange." She regained her composure and said, "If you dare to hurt me, my father will kill you." But Gu Beishan was bolder, moving closer, chuckling softly. He wrapped his arm around her waist and squeezed, causing Nia Xiaotian to gasp a few times. Gu Beishan let her go and repeated, "Senior sister, you lost. So shouldn't you fulfill your promise from the bet?" Gu Beishan sneered and asked, "Have you forgotten, senior sister? The bet was that you have to call me your husband." Nia Xiaotian blushed, closed her eyes, and remained silent. Gu Beishan, amused, said, "What? Are you pretending to sleep? Is that how it works?" His expression was mischievous as he called out, "Senior sister, stop pretending. I know you're not asleep. If you keep faking it, don't blame me for being impolite." Gu Beishan leaned in, lifted her chin, and reminded her, "Senior sister, if you can't keep your promise from the bet, your Dao heart might be harmed." The disciples on this side found the situation a bit off. "Look at that. What's going on here? Nia Xiaotian isn't resisting at all. Why is it so ambiguous all of a sudden? Are they really planning a kiss and to love each other for life?" Gu Beishan looked at Nia Xiaotian with deep affection, moving closer to her fair neck in a suggestive manner. "You're so talented. If something so trivial could disturb your Dao heart, if it goes overboard, could you really bear to leave me alone in this world?" Nia Lan Feng went mad, unleashing her powers, and shouted, "This brat!" He grimaced and shouted, "You dare to provoke Xiao Tian." Nia Lan Feng gathered his energy, ready to strike, and said, "Look at my move." Without thinking further, he unleashed a powerful flame attack. The disciples and elders all stepped back from that force. Nia Lan Feng retracted his technique, and smoke filled the air. In front of him was a bull using a shield to block the attack. Gu Beishan set down Nia Xiaotian and called out, "Yo brother, you finally made a move." The bull looked confused and turned to ask, "Little guy, you already know my cultivation, did you force me to act on purpose?" Gu Beishan honestly replied, "I didn't know at first. Last night you kept kicking around in your sleep, so I used a fairy rope to tie you up. As a result, you broke free after a while." He raised his hand and said, "That means your cultivation is likely above the golden elixir realm." The bull sighed and looked at him in frustration. "Enough. I didn't expect to be outsmarted by you." "Well, at least it proves I didn't misjudge. Your little guy is indeed quite clever." The disciples nearby pointed and were once again astonished. That old bull was actually able to withstand a strike from Master Nia. How is this possible? If this can be done, then that old cow can't be a strong one in the nascent soul realm. Nia Lanfeng frowned and introduced himself. "I am the master of the Fei Yun sect, Nia Lanfeng." He raised his hand and asked, "Which sect are you an expert from? Please reveal your name." Nia Lanfeng clenched his hand, placing it behind him, still bleeding, thinking to himself, "This old cow is not simple. Just now, it was only the backlash, and my right hand almost got crippled." The atmosphere grew tense as Brother Nyo remained silent, which weighed even heavier on Nia Lanfeng. But Brother Nyo merely mooed and lifted his head to chew grass. Nia Lanfeng looked a bit dazed, thinking, "What is happening? Does it not understand human speech? Could it really just be an ordinary cow?" Gu Beishan then mocked, "Senior, I've heard of playing music for cattle, but I didn't expect you to confide in a cow." He jumped onto the cow and asked, "So, do you have your eye on my mount? Too bad it's a male cow, otherwise, I would have helped you out." The disciples behind were astonished. "What? That cow is actually his mount?" The girl was also curious, who exactly was that young man? His mount could compete with Nia Master. The grazing cow looked back and thought, "That annoying kid, your ability to perform in front of others is indeed quite strong. Let you show off this time." At this moment, Nia Xiaotian ran over, calling, "Dad." Pointing at Gu Beishan, she complained, "He's bullying me. Dad, you have to seek justice for me." Nia Lanfeng asked anxiously, "Xiaotian, are you okay?" Gu Beishan raised his hand and asked, "Senior sister, you still haven't fulfilled your promise to call me husband. Is the Fei Yun sect really lacking in integrity like this?" Hearing this, the disciples were furious and shouted, "Insulting my senior sister and injuring my master is something we cannot tolerate. Today, the Fei Yun sect will fight to the bitter end with you." They unleashed their spiritual energy but were met with a loud shout, "Enough. Stop it right now." Yin Zixian asked, "With so many people joining in, haven't we lost enough face today?" The disciples looked at Yin Zixian in surprise. "She is the holy girl Yin Zixian." They all folded their hands, "Greetings, holy girl." Nia Lanfeng also folded his hands, "Greetings, holy girl. I wonder if the holy girl has any instructions." Gu Beishan was astonished, thinking, "Is it her? It really is a narrow path for enemies." He asked, "Nyo brother, what should we do? Damn, how did she end up here? Isn't she just walking into a trap?" The cow once again broke into a cold sweat, saying, "Dealing with one Nia Lanfeng would be challenging enough, but adding a Yin Zixian means this trip might be the end for me." Yin Zixian stepped forward, complimenting, "This young hero doesn't seem to have low cultivation." The cow secretly thought, "I'm screwed." The two pale-faced ones thought, "This life is a loss." Yin Zixian then said, "I don't know which sect you come from, could you tell me your name?" Gu Beishan was stunned, bewildered. The cow said, "It seems the lady has forgotten about her husband." Gu Beishan adjusted his mood and replied, "Oh, I'm sorry, I must be embarrassing the holy girl. I am the seventh disciple of Qing Nyo Venerable One, Gu Beichuan." Upon hearing this, the disciples whispered among themselves, "What kind of being is Qing Nyo Venerable One?" The male disciple said, "Could it be the expert demon clan?" The female disciple sighed, "A human clan yet comes to be a disciple of the demon clan. Don't talk nonsense, be careful or you might get beaten to death." The long-bearded elder pointed and said, "Qing Nyo Venerable One. I have never heard that name before, the fringe-haired elder added, but daring to claim to be a venerable one, who isn't a great power up high. The disciple also stepped forward and spoke loudly. If it's true, then I'm afraid the Fei Yun sect cannot afford to offend. It's better not to do anything reckless. Yin Xian raised her hand and said, if it's not Yuan Ying, one cannot claim to be a venerable one. She frowned slightly and asked, who on earth are you? She looked at the cow and thought, nascent soul realm. Qing Niu venerable one. But this is obviously just an ordinary cow. Nie Lan Feng's expression was also unpleasant, thinking, his mount actually has cultivation in the nascent soul realm. The strength of Qing Niu venerable one must be even more formidable. Nie Xiao Tian was also worried, thinking, Qing Niu venerable one. If we offend him, will the Fei Yun sect face disaster because of this? Before anything else, Nie Lan Feng laughed heartily, haha, as if they were close. So it turns out to be little Guy Bei-shen. Back when I and your master Qing Niu arranged this engagement, you were just a child. In the blink of an eye, you've grown up so much. Gu Bei-shen scratched his cheek and asked, what engagement are you talking about? Nie Lan Feng reproached him, you little rascal, just like your master, you don't know how to cherish anything. He took his hand and pulled him along in a friendly manner. With your master backing you up, you shouldn't be afraid of this future father-in-law taking care of you. Gu Bei-shen was completely lost and continuously stammered. Senior, Nie Lan Feng grimaced for a moment, spoke softly, and threatened. Little guy, just follow my lead. If Xiao Tian gets involved, he glared, veins bulging, threatening. Even if I have to fight a bloody battle with your mysterious master, today I will make you die at my hands. Gu Bei-shen broke out in cold sweat, looking over at the cow, thinking, the situation is getting more complicated, I can only count on your brother. The cow, also helpless, said, what are you looking at me for? It turned around and feigned ignorance, saying, resolve it yourself. Gu Bei-shen shouted, Niu old man. Your grandfather. Forget it. Just play along with him for now. After all, I only need one title of husband. He adjusted his mood, let out a sigh, and then turned to clasp his hands and introduced himself, the seventh disciple of Qing Niu venerable one, Gu Bei-shen, pays respect to you, uncle. The disciple listening was surprised and said, uncle. So he is the fiancé of Nie Xiao Tian. The girl beside him was also confused, but they just fought a moment ago, right? Today's events are truly overwhelming, making it hard for people to accept. Gu Bei-shen followed Nie Lan Feng's instructions and acted. Junior was ordered by Master to descend the mountain and come to Fei Yun sect. Master said if I met Xiao Tian, I shouldn't recognize her immediately, but should engage in a fight first. He said this, then knelt on one knee and expressed his feelings. If I am not a match for Xiao Tian, then I have no right to be her husband. His expression shifted to sorrowful, conflicted, and he lowered his eyes to continue. Junior accidentally injured Xiao Tian. Uncle can punish me however you wish, Junior absolutely has no objections. The cow watched his performance and couldn't help but exclaim, wow. He couldn't help but exclaim, this kid really knows how to fabricate stories and can even make them sound reasonable. The disciples understood and said, so it's a son-in-law selection event? Suddenly, we have to eavesdrop and participate in a trial, not to mention eating a ton of dog food. A disciple from the old man with the long beard questioned, I never heard that senior sister had a fiancé. He blurted out, Li Ziling's senior brother is in seclusion and has always been paying attention to senior sister. The guy next to him gestured, Shu, don't go looking for trouble. Yin Xian suddenly rushed out, Nie master, do you actually know this Qing Niu venerable one? Nie Lan Feng already felt quite embarrassed but still clasped his hands and said, please forgive me, holy girl. Back when I was discussing the marriage contract with Qing Niu venerable one, I thought it was just a joke, but who knew he was so serious? Yin Xian's eyes revealed an unmistakable sadness as she looked at Gu Bei-shen, thinking, why do I feel this strange sensation in my heart? Why is there this feeling of disappointment? Nie Lan Feng turned and called out, Xiao Tian, why don't you come over here to meet your Bei-shen Gij? Nie Xiao Tian looked at Gu Bei-shen and asked, is he, then blushed slightly and said, is he my fiancé? She observed Gu Bei-shen carefully and praised, although his clothes are shabby, upon closer inspection, his appearance is quite elegant. Moreover, he seems to be about the same age as me, but his cultivation is so high. Nia Xiaotian stared at him in amazement. Nia Lanfeng then took his daughter's hand and said loudly, "Today is the day the Fei Yun sect recruits students, and it's also the day our master welcomes a good son-in-law into the family. Truly a double joy." At this point, even if Gu Beishan had a thick face, he would have to feel embarrassed and stammer. Uncle, does the bet between me and Xiao Tian still count?" Nia Lanfeng raised his hand authoritatively and said, "Of course, the bet still counts. What my daughter has promised is what I have promised." Gu Beishan happily clapped his hands and praised, "Uncle truly keeps his promises. It seems my master was not mistaken." Nia Lanfeng, having a precious son-in-law, was also generous and loudly declared, "Based on Xiao Tian's bet, I announce that today all disciples participating in the entrance exam, whether they pass or not, will be accepted into the sect." Everyone was overjoyed upon hearing this. What? Did we hear wrong? Everyone was accepted into the Fei Yun sect. Then we are becoming cultivators. Gu Beishan behind kindly asked Xiao Tian, "Just now you said that if you lose, you would have to call me husband." Nia Xiao Tian's face flushed, and she looked down without answering. Nia Lanfeng called out, "New disciples, quickly thank senior brother Beishan." The group of disciples rushed from all directions, calling, "Senior brother Beishan. You are truly my benefactor. It's not too much to call you adoptive father. Junior brother thanks senior brother Beishan." They grabbed his shoulders and legs, lifting Gu Beishan high. "Long live senior brother Beishan. Long live Fei Yun sect. Long live senior brother Beishan. Long live Fei Yun sect." Gu Beishan, being praised, was thinking, this old fox Nia Lanfeng. He looked blankly, pondering life. I didn't expect to cover up the husband matter like this. Yin Zixian, standing behind, felt indescribable emotions. Is he really the fiancé of Nia Xiaotian? She looked up at Gu Beishan, confused. Clearly, this is our first meeting, but why am I feeling jealous? Nia Lanfeng clasped his hands and called out, "Holy girl." This remark interrupted Yin Zixian's thoughts. Nia Lanfeng said, "This is not a place to talk. Please come inside the hall to discuss." The two went to the living room. Nia Lanfeng then recounted everything, furrowing his brow as he said, "Holy girl, do not blame me. Just now at the mountain gate, it was only because I was concerned for the larger situation that I had to use such a lowly tactic." Yin Zixian remained silent, her attitude unchanged. She slowly spoke up and asked, "The engagement that Gu Beishan and Nia Xiaotian mentioned, is it really just a temporary fabrication?" Nia Lanfeng replied, "What I said earlier was only to avoid leaving a mental scar in Xiaotian's heart realm, and also to protect the reputation of our Fei Yun sect." Yin Zixian sighed and said, "I had guessed it before, but I didn't expect it to be true. It's good that he has no engagement." She looked at Nia Lanfeng and asked further, "So who is the person called Qing Niu Venerable One?" Nia Lanfeng did not know either and replied, "Qing Niu Venerable One. I have never heard that name." However, Gu Beishan is young yet possesses such cultivation, and he also has a mount in the nascent soul realm by his side. Clearly he is not an ordinary person. Yin Zixian was also confused and asked, "So what should we do now?" Directly declaring the annulment of the engagement would certainly make the Fei Yun sect lose all its face, right? Nia Lanfeng cunningly replied, "Don't worry, holy girl, I already have a plan. I will definitely not let the sect lose all its face." On Nia Xiaotian's side, she was standing in the courtyard, hesitating and sighing. She was puzzled and thought, if senior brotherly Ziling knew about my engagement, I wonder what he would think. She stepped forward, reached for a branch of flowers on the tree, and said, "The flowers on the tree are already ripe. I guess he must be about to break through to the golden elixir realm, right?" At this moment, another hand reached up and snapped the branch of flowers, making her stop and look over. Gu Beishan brought the flower branch to her and elegantly asked, "Senior sister, it seems you have a taste for enjoying flowers and admiring the plum blossoms here." Nia Xiaotian just said, "What does it have to do with you?" when he placed the flower branch in her hand. She blushed slightly, turned away, and said, "What does it have to do with you?" Gu Bei-shen looked up at the tree and happily recited a few lines of poetry. Testing the skillful dexterity of slender hands on display, the flowers fragrant with dewdrops dampened the thin attire with light sweats. Seeing her husband come, the mismatched shoes and golden hairpin slipped away, bashfully running to the door, glancing back shyly. His hair swayed gently with the wind, carrying a faintly lingering smile. Nya Xiaotian was taken aback, thinking, but why is she smelling the plum blossom? Looking at the branch of plum blossoms, she said again, but why is she smelling the plum blossom? She lowered her head and said, how annoying, only knowing how to mock me. But this name doesn't seem that unpleasant after all. She turned her head and said, this place is my private garden. Please, young master, go back. Gu Bei-shen said, why are you still calling me young master? Senior sister, shouldn't you change your words? Behind them, Nia Lan Feng approached with Yin Zixian and asked, I didn't expect my son-in-law. Yin Zixian frowned, thinking, his talent is exceptional, far surpassing those self-proclaimed elegant ones at Cloud Heaven Palace. She was annoyed, thinking, but it's for another woman. Gu Bei-shen glanced over, feeling uncomfortable, secretly thinking, this troublesome matter is coming again. Well, let's continue with the act. As long as they can still be cautious, there is still a chance to turn the situation around. He clasped his hands in salute. Gu Bei-shen greets Nya Master and greets Yin Holy Girl. Nya Lan Feng said, Xiao Tian, you go rest. I have matters to discuss with Bei-shen. Nya Xiao Tian replied, yes. Then she left. Gu Bei-shen rolled his eyes and thought, the atmosphere was so wonderful just now, and then Nya Lan Feng ruined it. Nya Lan Feng suddenly grabbed his hand and said seriously, Gu Bei-shen, I don't care what your identity is, even if you really are a disciple of Qin Nyo Venerable One. His face darkened as he emphasized, my daughter is not someone to be bullied by others. Gu Bei-shen was taken aback, thinking, no more acting. He didn't dare to look him in the eye, thinking, the old man from Guanyu isn't here, and this guy wants to turn the tables. Am I in danger? With no way to move forward or backward, he tried to ask seriously, so, Nya Master, what exactly do you want? Nya Lan Feng released his hand and replied, I have decided that starting today, I, Nya Lan Feng, will invite you to join the Fei Yun sect as a guest elder. Gu Bei-shen broke out in a sweat, unable to believe it. He thought, what the hell? How can you say such words in such an arrogant tone? His eyes darkened as he thought, it seems I really have to act to the point of touching someone's heart. I see you as a kind of father-in-law, but you actually see yourself as my real father. He raised his hand and calmly said, thank you, Nya Master, for your kind offer, but elder sounds too old. How about calling me guest young master instead? Nya Lan Feng clapped his hands and called out, someone, bring the items here. 2 female disciples brought clothing and a sword. The girl said, elder, please change your clothes. Gu Bei-shen donned the attire and, along with the sword, exuded an exceptional charm. Even Yin Zixian was captivated by his appearance and thought, Gu Bei-shen, so he can be so handsome and imposing. She was even more surprised and exclaimed, he can freely switch between the mortal realm and the immortal sect. Nya Lan Feng laughed heartily and praised, my son-in-law truly is a talent. Gu Bei-shen grimaced, thinking, son-in-law. I disdain that. This old man is starting the engagement act again. Seizing the opportunity, Nya Lan Feng declared, Gu Bei-shen and Xiao Tian will choose a wedding date and become Dao partners. Gu Bei-shen was astonished, not expecting him to be serious. Old man, it was just a cooperation for acting, but you really mean it? Yin Zixian was also confused and asked, Nya Master, what do you mean? Didn't you say there was basically no engagement before? Nya Lan Feng clenched his fist, his expression unchanged, and stated a shocking revelation, indeed, Xiao Tian has feelings for Gu Bei-shen. This marriage not only has the potential to attract talent to the sect but also to protect the sect's reputation. He turned around and said, it could also help Xiao Tian stabilize her heart realm and prevent her mind demons. Gu Beishan was taken aback, unsure of what expression to show, thinking, damn it, I really got myself into a bind this time. If I really have to marry Nye Xiao Tian, how can I still flirt around? How can I focus on guiding others? How can I add more people to the 100 Wives book? He clasped his hands together and firmly said to him, I have agreed to be a guest elder. But a marriage of such significance cannot be so casually arranged. He emphasized, I am a responsible man. This matter must. Suddenly, a sword appeared, startling Gu Beishan as it pierced into his leg. Almost losing the chance to flirt, he exclaimed, ouch, ouch. Yin Zixian withdrew her move and continued the unfinished sentence of his, I do not agree to this marriage. Her attitude caused Gu Beishan to feel anxious, thinking, oh no, she must have recognized me. He recalled the situation at that time, feeling even more startled. That day he was tied up like that, and today was he really going to experience intense transmission? Nye Lanfeng was visibly irritated, still clasping his hands as he asked, Holy girl, what do you mean? He was determined, emphasizing, even though you are the supreme sect holy girl, you are still beneath my sect. He frowned and said, what you said seems a bit inappropriate. Looking over, he saw Yin Zixian take out a token, and exclaimed. Nye Lanfeng looked suspicious and asked, what's that? Yin Zixian replied, Cloud Heaven Palace Command. Then she said, seeing this token is like seeing the palace master. This marriage shall be annulled. Nye Lanfeng clasped his hands and asked, Holy girl, why use your power to coerce others? He boldly said, but even the supreme sect has no right to interfere in the affairs of the Nye family. Yin Zixian raised the Cloud Heaven command, speaking firmly, this holy girl will accept Nye Xiao Tian into the Yunzi book. From today on, he will be named Nye Yun Tian. From today on, he will be a disciple of the supreme sect. She raised her voice, asking again, the marriage was decided by the sect master, does Nye master have any objections? Nye Lanfeng was somewhat agitated and replied, Nye Lanfeng obeys the orders of the palace master. He smiled widely, expressing his gratitude, and thought with joy, Xiao Tian has entered the heavenly palace Yunzi book, and his future accomplishments are limitless and extremely promising. Ha ha ha. Gu Beishan was still standing in a daze, but he felt somewhat relieved. He thought to himself, I was worried about how to tactfully decline this marriage proposal, but now I don't have to worry anymore. He looked over at Yin Zixian and sighed, indeed, taking a concubine must be approved by the main wife. Yin Zixian suddenly approached, which surprised Gu Beishan a bit. Yin Zixian said, this time, I am here on a mission to receive Nye Yun Tian, but there is still one thing I need Master Nye's help with. Gu Beishan scratched his face and wondered, if you need Master Nye's help, why is the main wife looking at me? I'm not even the master of the Fei Yin sect. Nye Lanfeng replied seriously, holy girl, you can entrust me with this. He asserted, if this is something that the Fei Yin sect can do, we will definitely do our utmost. Yin Zixian said, this time I came to the Fei Yin sect to explore a secret realm. I hope Master Nye can assign 3 people to accompany me. Nye Lanfeng said, I will order the Grand Elder and the other 2 elders to go together, coordinating with full effort. Yin Zixian raised a hand to refuse, the realm of the 3 elders is too high. I see that Xiao Tian and Gu Beishan are very suitable. Master just needs to arrange for one more person. Gu Beishan was stunned, thinking, I told you, why do you keep staring at me? Turns out you want me to serve as a soldier. His face darkened, feeling unhappy, thinking, with what you just did, if you take me with you, who knows how you will treat me. He thought for a moment and then boldly said, is this holy girl mistaken? I am not a member of the Fei Yin sect. He didn't hesitate to speak frankly, moreover, my cultivation is still lacking, please forgive this young master for being unable to help. If there's nothing else, I respectfully take my leave. Nye Lanfeng said, Gu Beishan, since you defeated Xiao Tian, you are already a part of my Fei Yin sect. He clenched his fist, irritated, and asked, furthermore, I also bestowed upon you the status of guest sect. How can you be disrespectful to the holy girl? Gu Beishan did not back down and retorted, your hat is too big for you. I only agree to be a guest elder, and your sect's matters have nothing to do with me. His gaze was cold as he questioned him. Yin Zixian suddenly approached Gu Beishan and spoke, this holy girl will certainly not make things difficult for Gu young master. She placed her hand on the sword, frightening Gu Beishan, who quickly adjusted his demeanor. He coughed lightly and clasped his hands, saying, whatever the holy girl says, I, as a young master, have always enjoyed helping others, finding joy in assisting people. If I see an elderly person in need, I will help them immediately. He slightly bowed and continued, if the holy girl needs my assistance, then I, as a young master, will definitely not refuse. Yin Zixian drew her sword, smiled, and replied, then I, this holy girl, would like to thank Gu young master in advance for your support. Gu Beishan cheerfully exclaimed, it is only right to do so. By the gate of the small courtyard behind the mountain, Gu Beishan spoke as he walked, Yin Zixian, right? Holy girl, isn't it? Didn't you always call me your husband? He raised both hands confidently and declared, wait until I take in a few junior wives for my 100 Wives book and practice my techniques like pushing mountains with a single palm and breaking rivers with 2 fingers. We will definitely come with swords to make you pay back 100-fold. At this moment, someone called out, senior brother. The female junior sister and the male disciple approached, congratulating him, senior brother has been promoted to guest elder. Thanks to the elder, we were able to enter Fei Yun sect. Gu Beishan asked, is it you guys? You catch on to information quickly. The male disciple handed over a wooden box and said, I specially brought some supplements for the elder, hoping the elder will accept them. Gu Beishan tilted his head in surprise, you even know about this? He continued to ask, by the way, what exactly is the background of Cloud Heaven Palace? The female disciple replied, Cloud Heaven Palace is one of the 4 major sects of the Wu Ji Empire, located in the center of the Wu Ji Empire, controlling 5 regions. The strong members within the sect are numerous as clouds. She excitedly said, with 1,000 years of inheritance, their strength is unfathomable. Just listening to this, Gu Beishan was already drenched in sweat, thinking to himself, for others, it is a holy land for cultivation, but for me, it is no different from a factory producing chargers for the 100 Wives book. He thought for a moment and then dismissed it, sneering, I thought it would be a fearsome sect. Turns out it's just a holy land for cultivation in a small part of the Wu Ji Empire. The male disciple looked at the female disciple and asked, small land? She looked at him as well and repeated, the Wu Ji Empire is a small land. The male disciple presented the box and flattered, elder is truly extraordinary, with such spirit. In the entire Cloud Heaven Palace, or rather, throughout the Wu Ji Empire, how many people possess such vision? At that moment, a cow's moo sounded. Gu Beishan cleared his throat and took the item from him, I'll accept the gift. This young master feels a bit tired, you all can go now. The male disciple clasped his hands and said, from now on, every 1st and 15th day of the month, we will definitely offer generous gifts, absolutely not neglecting. The female disciple also sincerely said, I hope the elder will not find it lacking. After a while, Gu Beishan sat in meditation, while the cow beside him was eating ginseng and said, impressive. Just by your tongue, you could become a guest elder and receive so many good things. Be sure to ask them to give more next time. Gu Beishan stood up and cursed, damn it. You almost got me killed. It was said to only go to the sect, but the result is that you tricked me into becoming the son-in-law of someone else's master. He was annoyed and immediately questioned it, moreover, my first wife in the golden elixir realm is here. If it weren't for my excellent acting skills, you would have been turned into steak by now. The cow clicked its tongue and sighed, but your little guy really knows how to talk big. Is the Wu Ji Empire really just a small piece of land? How can you talk so confidently? Gu Beishan smiled and said, what do you mean talking big? Why have you stopped speaking, old cow? The cow, angry, swished its tail and shouted, get lost, making Gu Beishan hold his butt and exclaim, ouch, ouch, ouch. He turned around and angrily asked, what are you doing, old cow? You have no martial ethics, sneaking up on your teammate. The cow said seriously, alright, back to the main topic. Tomorrow's exploration mission in the secret realm is a good training opportunity. Your abilities are now sufficient for you to go alone. I will stay at the sect and wait for you to return. Gu Beishen was surprised and asked, aren't you going? He felt a bit sad and asked, old man cow, do you not care about me anymore? With the current strength, being able to use only 3 parts of Yin Zi Xian's power is completely insufficient to deal with the experts from outside. The cow tilted its head and explained, that's because she doesn't have feelings for you. As long as the feelings between the two of you increase, you'll be able to use her cultivation more. Gu Beishen, feeling self-satisfied, praised himself, so my first wife already has feelings for me. Indeed, my charm is extraordinary. He frowned, then looked down at his hands, calming his breath to sense. He truly felt that the true qi within his body had become more abundant. The cow sweated, surprised, a pure young body cannot cultivate, it's a rare occurrence in 1,000 years. Could it be that this little guy is truly of the ancient clan? The next morning, at the Fei Yun Sect Square, Yin Zi Xian, Gu Beishen, Nia Xiao Tian, and Li Ziling were present. Yin Zi Xian said, if everyone is here, Master Nia, please give the order. Nia Lan Feng announced solemnly, guest Gu Beishen is cooperating with Holy Girl of the Supreme Sect Cloud Heaven Palace to carry out a mission. Disciples of Fei Yun Sect Li Ziling and Nia Xiao Tian are to obey the Holy Girl's orders and set off together. No mistakes are allowed. He spoke while sternly reminding them. Nia Xiao Tian and Li Ziling clasped their hands together and said in unison, we obey your command, Master. Li Ziling called out, Xiao Tian, this time senior brother is in seclusion, and his cultivation has progressed. This time, senior brother must take good care of me. Yin Zi Xian looked over at them and clearly noticed that Li Ziling had feelings for Nia Xiao Tian. She suddenly snorted coldly and said, if this mission is completed successfully, Li Ziling, if you perform well, she promised, this holy girl will reward you with the qualification to cultivate at the Supreme Sect. Li Ziling clasped her hands and said, thank you, holy girl, for your grace. This time, I will undoubtedly risk danger and spare no effort. He was delighted, thinking to himself, as long as this mission is successful, I will have the chance to go to the Supreme Sect with junior sister Xiao Tian. By then, how can I not win junior sister's heart? He frowned and thought further, what could be difficult about having master withdraw the engagement of Xiao Tian? Gu Beishen looked at them, a little stunned, wondering, my first wife just said that, and those two have a reason to go to the Supreme Sect. So what can I do to be able to go? His face reluctantly twitched as he thought, why not ask to see? He picked up the fan and approached, calling out, Holy Girl Lord, this young master promised to help you yesterday, but I never said it would be for free. Yin Zi Xian turned around and asked, Gu young master, do you have any conditions? Just say it. Gu Beishen pretended to think for a moment and said, upon further reflection, it seems this young master really doesn't lack anything. He coldly said, then I hope the Holy Girl Lord will agree to one thing for me. Li Ziling crossed her arms and huffed, don't lack anything. Who do you think you are? He reached out toward Yin Zi Xian, aggressively continuing, the person you are facing is the Holy Girl of Cloud Heaven Palace, one of the 4 major sects of the Wu Ji Empire. The rewards I can give you might not be anything a small sect like Fei Yun Sect could ever hope to obtain. Upon hearing this, Gu Beishen mocked, so Fei Yun Sect is that poor, huh? This made him furious, and he pointed, growling each word, you, little guy. Yin Zi Xian asked, so is it that young master wants this holy girl to promise to do something for you? Gu Beishen waved his fan and replied, let me think and then I will speak. I definitely won't put the holy girl in a difficult position. How about that? Yin Zi Xian also agreed, then I will just do as the young master says. She waved her hand, and a spirit ship appeared, floating in the air, please board the ship. The spirit ship flew slowly among the clouds. Gu Beishen sighed, this is already the stratosphere. If it weren't for the spiritual energy in my body having been enhanced, I would definitely have frozen to death by now. Nia Xiao Tian looked down and also spoke, the speed is too fast, we have already flown over 100 miles in no time. Suddenly, the spirit ship shook, causing both of them to stumble. Gu Beishan raised his hand, grabbed Nia Xiaotian's hand, and pulled her into his embrace. Nia Xiaotian went from surprise to blushing, saying, "Beishan Gij, you are hurting me." Gu Beishan thoughtfully said, "Be careful. If you fall off the spirit ship, even with spiritual energy to protect you, you would be seriously injured." Nia Xiaotian responded with an, and thanked him, "Thank you, Beishan Gij." Gu Beishan smiled gently and speculated, "Nia Lanfeng must be afraid of offending a young master from a mysterious force like me, so he sacrificed his precious daughter to please me." From his gaze, he let out a slight sigh, "I only want to obtain her wind's spiritual roots." He let her go and said, "Nia Xiaotian, in fact, I have little connection with you and the Feiyun sect." He raised his hand and said, "As long as you fulfill your promise and call me husband, I will not harm your Dao heart." Hearing this, Nia Xiaotian's tears fell down her cheeks, saying, "Aren't you supposed to be my future husband?" She wiped her tears and replied, "I understand now. The young master does not like Xiaotian. Xiaotian was disrespectful to the young master. When I return to the Feiyun sect, I will ask my father to annul the engagement myself." Gu Beishan was also surprised and confused, thinking, could it be that Nia Lanfeng didn't tell her that the engagement he mentioned before basically doesn't exist? I understand now. Nia Lanfeng is afraid her heart realm will be harmed, so she didn't bring it up with her. Gu Beishan placed his hand on her shoulder and comforted her, "Xiaotian, I was too harsh. I thought you were forced to please me by Nia Master, which is why I said those words." He smiled warmly and said, "Actually, I don't hate you at all." Nia Xiaotian also felt a bit wronged and replied, "Beishan Gij, actually, when I am with you today, that is my true self. What you saw yesterday was just me acting as the master's daughter, having to present myself a certain way in front of my fellow disciples." Li Ziling had just stepped out and, upon seeing this scene, clenched his fists and shouted, "You bastard, what are you doing? Let Xiaotian go right now." He added, "You jerk," and unleashed his power to strike, saying, "How dare you bully Xiaotian." Nia Xiaotian looked over and then also used her power to block the attack, causing both their forces to explode at the same time. Li Ziling, surprised, asked, "Xiaotian, what are you doing?" Nia Xiaotian did not answer him but asked, "Beishan Gij, are you okay?" Gu Beishan replied, "I'm fine, thank you, Xiaotian, for helping." Li Ziling, furious, asked, "Xiaotian, why are you protecting this jerk? He is just a young master relying on his elder." Li Ziling said indignantly, but Nia Xiaotian reminded him, "Li senior brother, don't be disrespectful. Beishan Gij is our guest elder of the Feiyun sect." She blushed slightly and continued, "Moreover, she is my future Dao partner." Li Ziling was shocked, stammering, "Xiaotian, what are you talking about?" Nia Xiaotian stepped forward, saying, "Considering that Li's senior brother just exited today and you acted without knowing the situation, I won't let Beishan Gij pursue charges of disrespect against you." Li Ziling indignantly said, "Xiaotian, I just don't want you to be deceived by this young master, I don't want you to go against your conscience and get close to this fickle person." Nia Xiaotian replied indifferently, "My matters do not require Li's senior brother to worry. Also, the way you call me Xiaotian is too intimate, please refrain from calling me that in the future. Like the other senior brothers, just call me Nia junior sister." She waved her hand, and Gu Beishan nervously emphasized, "Don't let Beishan Gij misunderstand, junior sister thanks you in advance." Li Ziling was left stunned as he watched them being affectionate. He looked at them, then bowed his head and gritted his teeth, refusing to accept. "What Qin Niu, venerable one, what engagement, all baseless nonsense." He looked at Gu Beishan and shouted, "Master and Xiaotian must have fallen under your evil demon's enchanting spell." Li Ziling unleashed her technique, revealing the divine tiger. She firmly stated, "Today, I, Li Ziling, will carry out justice on behalf of heaven and eliminate your wicked kind." Nia Xiaotian looked up at the divine tiger and asked, "Li Ziling, what are you planning to do?" She posed in a defensive stance and said, "This is a spaceship, do you want everyone to die? Gu Bei-shen was astonished, thinking, this guy actually has cultivation at the golden elixir realm major completion. He frowned, thinking, right now, I'm still not a match for him. Am I really going to let Li Ziling call me husband? Nia Xiaotian anxiously asked, Bei-shen Gij, what should we do now? Gu Bei-shen feigned calmness and reassured her, Xiaotian, there's no need to be afraid. I'll handle everything. Then, without hesitation, he ran off shouting, holy girl. This is bad. As he ran, he informed, someone is setting fire on your spaceship. Yin Zixian kept her eyes closed, pretending nothing was happening. Your personal matters are for you to solve. Don't bother me. No wonder she let Li Ziling come along and promised to let him go to Cloud Heaven Palace. So it turns out the first wife is also a jealous person. Li Ziling waved her hand, sending the tiger charging forward, shouting, demonic Gu Bei-shen, die. The tiger roared and lunged at him. Gu Bei-shen, in fear, thought, that's it, summoning a shark now is too late. The tiger opened its mouth and charged, but suddenly shrank down to a mini version right at Gu Bei-shen's feet. It was still fluffy and made a growling sound. Gu Bei-shen was taken aback, thinking, what's going on? Why has this tiger turned into a sickly cat? Nia Xiaotian ran over, calling, Bei-shen Gij. She asked worriedly, are you okay? Li Ziling looked at her hand, confused, my spiritual energy. He was perplexed, why has it become so weak? Yin Zixian then spoke up, explaining, we have entered the secret realm of the void. In the secret realm, everyone's cultivation will be suppressed. Gu Bei-shen looked at the still fluffy tiger beside him and thought, so that's how it is. It seems the first wife is not someone who would stand by and do nothing. He kicked the tiger, saying, get lost. Li Ziling sulked and said, consider yourself lucky. Once my cultivation is restored, I will definitely turn your beloved into dust. Gu Bei-shen raised both hands and teased, do you really need to go that far? It's just a grudge over a stolen wife. Li Ziling was so furious she felt like exploding, insisting, Gu Bei-shen, mark my words, I will get my revenge for today's grudge. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west, just you wait. Gu Bei-shen scratched his face, chuckling to himself, thinking, why does it feel like this guy is the one holding the main script? Yin Zixian stood up and said, the spirit ship is about to land, everyone hold on tight. The spirit ship gradually descended into the secret realm of Tianyun. Yin Zixian turned around and said, this place is a secret realm, and this holy girl doesn't know the specific situation inside. Your mission on this trip is to follow this holy girl to search for an item within the secret realm. As for other matters, adapt as needed. Li Ziling and Nia Xiaotian bowed and replied, understood. Gu Bei-shen nodded. Yin Zixian glared down, feeling annoyed, and thought, Li Ziling, what a useless one. She turned around, wondering to herself, what's wrong with me lately? Her mood was constantly disturbed by young master Gu Bei-shen, and she felt jealousy towards Xiaotian. She sighed and stepped into the secret realm. As the four of them walked, Nia Xiaotian casually said, Bei-shen Gij, this place is truly like a paradise. Gu Bei-shen also lamented, holy girl, this place is lush and clear, it doesn't feel unusual at all. Yin Zixian said, in this secret realm, the Tao pressure is very strong. Everyone's spiritual energy is suppressed at the early stage of foundation establishment realm. Li Ziling crossed her arms and teased, you all were originally in the foundation establishment realm, so it's normal that you can't feel anything. Gu Bei-shen glanced at her, thinking, if what the first wife Yin Zixian said is true, everyone entering the secret realm is suppressed at the foundation establishment realm. He clenched both hands, releasing spiritual energy, and thought, but my spiritual energy comes from the 100 Wives book. Currently, my cultivation is still at the early stage of golden elixir realm. He frowned in thought, but to continue breaking through, I need to quickly create an atmosphere for Xiaotian to call me husband. Nia Xiaotian seemed a bit apprehensive and said, Bei-shen Gij, the two of us are weak, let's not act alone anymore. Yin Zixian felt annoyed seeing her getting closer to Gu Bei-shen again. This Nia Xiaotian, she thought before stating, the four of us will form a horizontal formation, spreading out a distance of 10 miles, and search ahead. Li Ziling and I will be on the outer sides, while Gu Beishan and Nye Xiaotian will be in the middle. Hearing this, Nye Xiaotian and Gu Beishan were both surprised. He looked at Yin Zixian, feeling in his heart, this first wife is a bit hard to understand, she gets jealous over the slightest thing. Yin Zixian took out several floating tokens and distributed them to the three, instructing, if the token lights up, report to me immediately. She reminded them, just be careful while searching ahead. If you truly encounter an unsolvable danger, then decide what to do afterward. Gu Beishan asked, Holy girl, what exactly do you want us to find? Yin Zixian replied, I can't tell you that. She said seriously, but in the secret realm, as soon as you see anything unusual, report it to me immediately. Gu Beishan responded earnestly, understood, holy girl. He looked at the token and clicked his tongue, thinking, it seems it is not a precious item after all. If I had found this first, I would definitely keep it for myself. Li Ziling was also happily watching him, thinking, finally, you are acting on your own for once. He gritted his teeth and was determined, Gu Beishan, I will make you pay. Gu Beishan went in a different direction, boredly touching the tree trunk. Is this so-called secret realm just a dungeon? It doesn't seem that special. As he walked, he wisely said, the environment here isn't bad. If I had known this earlier, I would have brought Nyo old man here to graze. Gu Beishan clenched his hands and gloomily said, why am I still thinking about letting cattle roam like this? I am no longer that little boy herding cattle. This damn occupational hazard. There was a rustling sound in the bushes ahead. He looked over and asked, what is that noise? A rabbit jumped out of the bushes. Gu Beishan said, so it's just a rabbit. His eyes suddenly widened in shock. That rabbit is huge, but why is this rabbit so big? He happily thought, a rabbit this size would make urban dwellers cry with joy. Saliva dripped down in happiness right there. He grabbed the pot and pan and rushed in, turning it into a spicy rabbit dish. Just thinking about it made Gu Beishan drool. The huge rabbit stared at him with wide eyes, then began to drool, making him confused and think, why does this giant rabbit have such an expression? He was startled and realized, could it be planning to eat me? As he thought this, the large rabbit leaped forward, causing Gu Beishan to panic, thinking, I'm done for. The large rabbit missed its grab and landed on the ground. Gu Beishan dodged to the side, cautiously deducing, is this a carnivorous rabbit? Gu Beishan unleashed his spiritual energy and said, let's see who ends up eating whom. He braced himself, preparing to strike. The large rabbit also emitted power from its forehead and suddenly shot forward. Fortunately, Gu Beishan was relatively agile and managed to evade its attack. He looked at it fiercely and muttered, how annoying. He was terrified and wondered, this rabbit doesn't look any weaker than old man Nyo. Are the strongest creatures in this world just these beasts? At that moment, the large rabbit released a shockwave, forcing Gu Beishan to cover his head and exclaim, my head hurts. What is happening? In front of him, a girl suddenly appeared. Gu Beishan looked up and asked, who? Who is it? When he opened his eyes, he saw a girl with rabbit ears and elegant legs. In astonishment, he called out, Yin Zixian, the rabbit. The rabbit girl raised her finger and chuckled softly. Gu Beishan cunningly said, little white rabbit, with two ears standing up, loves to eat carrots and greens, hops around, truly adorable. He approached the rabbit girl, sighed and remarked, next time, sing a different version for the first wife, I bet it will make her so embarrassed that she'll dive right into the blanket. Just as he was lost in her beauty, the rabbit girl raised her hand and slapped him hard, causing him to spit water and twist his mouth. He touched his flushed cheek and asked, what is happening, only to find that it was Yin Zixian. She asked, what are you doing? Being dazed in the middle of a battle, Gu Beishan bared his teeth and cursed, annoying, then pointed at the white rabbit and scolded it, your grandfather, a mere rabbit trying to seduce me. This is too much. Yin Zixian waved her sword and coldly said, you still need me to take action personally. The rabbit used a mind-controlling trick again. She paused and said, what kind of strange feeling is this? She looked like she was gradually sinking into an illusion. Gu Beishen was surprised and asked, huh? Didn't you say you would kill the rabbit? Why are you looking at me? Yin Xian looked at him, then blushed and called, Grand Gidge, it's you. Gu Beishen scratched his face, feeling awkward. What is this? Grand Gidge. The big rabbit became angry and immediately charged forward. Gu Beishen looked over and pushed Yin Xian aside, shouting, be careful. He himself blocked the mouth of the big rabbit that was opening wide. Nia Xiaotian and Li Ziling ran over, shouting, Beishen Gidge, be careful. Li Ziling held her hand, preventing her. Xiaotian, don't go over there. That rabbit seems to have an enchanting technique. Nia Xiaotian coldly pushed his hand away. I told you already, don't call me Xiaotian anymore. Don't stop me, get out of the way. She ran over and said, Beishen Gidge, I'm here to help you. The big rabbit released its enchanting technique again. Nia Xiaotian called out again, Beishen Gidge, and fell under the enchantment. Gu Beishen looked at her and thought, oh no, she's been hit by the soul charm. Nia Xiaotian smiled softly and said, Beishen Gidge, you've been waiting for a long time. Then she moved closer to him and continued, Xiaotian is late. Gu Beishen was both shy and flustered, exclaiming, Xiaotian, please wake up. The evil energy of Li Ziling had darkened a corner. The flames of jealousy mixed with wickedness said, Gu Beishen, your death day has come. Nia Xiaotian called out, Beishen Gidge, and kept leaning against him. She looked up at him and said, from now on, Xiaotian will cultivate at Cloud Heaven Palace. Tonight the moon is bright and the wind is pleasant, why don't we get married right now? Gu Beishen hurriedly said, Xiaotian, please wake up. Don't suddenly take off your clothes like this in broad daylight. Li Ziling crossed her arms, smiling with delight, thinking, well, this works, let her see him die, and it will cut off all her feelings for him. She sneered, thinking, at most, he will come to save her soon. Gu Beishen struggled to shut the mouth of the big rabbit and thought, this time is tricky, my spiritual energy is almost depleted. He turned his head and called, Yin Xian, hurry up and help. What are you still standing around for? Do you really want to see us be made prey for the rabbit? Yin Xian was also enchanted and asked, Grand Gidge, what are you saying? Gu Beishen shouted again, I'm saying we should quickly deal with it while we can. But for Yin Xian at that moment, she noticed him raising his hand and called, Xian, come play with Gidge. She also raised her hand and called, Grand Gidge, do you want to play with Xian? Now both girls were clinging to Gu Beishen, making him brace himself while thinking, she has been heavily affected by the enchantment. Yin Xian happily asked, Grand Gidge, can we continue playing the bandit wife game? Last time Xian was tied up and brought back by you, how do you plan to treat Xian in the future? Li Ziling exclaimed in surprise, bandit wife. He felt a chill down his spine, thinking, even under the enchantment, the holy girl's mind is quite lively. Gu Beishen shouted, hey, Li Ziling, if you don't act now, we'll be in real trouble. Li Ziling pointed, snorted coldly, and nonchalantly said, monster. Having enchanted Xiaotian and Nia Master, now your fate is to be swallowed by illusion. It is true that you reap what you sow. Gu Beishen gritted his teeth in frustration and thought, this Li Ziling is really a blind lover. Now that things have come to this, we might as well use his own tricks against him. Nia Xiaotian said, Beishen Gidge, accept me, Xiaotian. Yin Xian also called out, Grand Gidge, please don't spank Xian anymore. Gu Beishen took advantage of the situation, pretending to be aggrieved, and asked, Xiaotian, why do you still call me Beishen Gidge? Nia Xiaotian replied, then, what should I call you? Gu Beishen awkwardly responded, Xiaotian and I have a proper engagement, of course, we should have a wedding ceremony first before fulfilling the duties of husband and wife. She sadly replied, I understand. Then, she immediately called out, husband. The 100 Wives book then displayed Nia Xiaotian's name. Gu Beishen was overjoyed, thinking, got it, the wind spiritual roots of Xiao Tian are of supreme quality. His eyes lit up, and he shouted, before unleashing tremendous power, sending all three of them flying. Li Ziling exclaimed in surprise, what happened? Just a moment ago he was exhausted. He was stunned and confused, where does this power come from? Gu Baishan looked at the power emanating from himself, unable to believe it. Is this really the power of the second wife? It truly is a monster. He looked at his hand, even more surprised. The water spiritual roots of the first wife combined with the wind spiritual roots of the second wife, yet it can form ice-type spiritual energy. He raised his hand to control the ice, wondering, what should I name this move? He unleashed the ice while rushing forward, reciting, Jade Road Wind and Flow Technique. The large rabbit was not gentle either and once again launched a direct attack against Gu Baishan's technique. Unexpectedly, his power was much more formidable, making it scream as it was swallowed, disappearing in an instant. The forest returned to its former tranquility. Gu Baishan held the now miniaturized large rabbit in his hand, looking extremely adorable. Li Ziling was astonished, thinking, Gu Baishan has won. But he was even more puzzled. What kind of move is Jade Road Wind and Flow Technique? He furrowed his brow, thinking, it sounds extremely low class but also makes people feel a bit strange. He stopped thinking and ran to Nya Xiao Tian, asking, are you okay? Nya Xiao Tian sat up and asked, is it already morning? Did Xiao Tian make her husband comfortable last night? She was startled. Ha! A voice asked, what's going on? Why did you fall asleep just now? Looking over at Yin Zixien, who was still drowsy, she called out, it hurts, Grand Gidge, you hit my butt again. All three of them looked at her with surprise. Suddenly, Gu Baishan grabbed Nya Xiao Tian's hand and shouted, we need to run. She asked in confusion, why do we have to run? Gu Baishan, in fear, said, if someone sees her in that embarrassing state, it will really be terrible. Li Ziling, still unaware of what was happening, looked after them and said, are you crazy? He went back inside and called out, holy girl, wake up quickly. The battle is over. Yin Zixien woke up in a rush, immediately stood up, and blushed while looking at Li Ziling. Without much ado, a loud slap was heard. Red marks appeared on his face as he lay on the ground. Nya Xiao Tian said, how did such a cute little rabbit become like this? Yin Zixien replied, what's so surprising about it? It's just a spirit rabbit. That was the end of the matter. See you in the next episode.